Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we're looking at a very interesting archetype, Giratina Garbodor Hammers. This is a deck that popped up from the Spiel Special, a tournament just happened quite recently, and it was Robin Schultz, a really good, prominent European player who piloted this deck to top 4 and really turned a few heads, so we are going to check out this deck list today. Really, it has the same sort of concept as something like an old Seismitoad EX deck, where you're trying to deny your opponent all energy on the board, whilst also denying abilities, as well as trying to deny, with Chaos Wheel, the use of stadiums, special energy cards, and tools as well, whenever you're able. Because, of course, Pokemon Range is a card now, people can get around these sorts of things, but it has the same sort of core of a disruptive Toad deck, and now we're just seeing Toad's gone, so let's try Giratina and see how that functions. That's basically the premise of this deck. So let's check out the Pokemon. First of all, the main attacker is Giratina EX. We do play 3 of him. He's 170 HP Dragon type, and he has the ability Renegade Pulse, preventing all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Mega Evolutions. So this is the first thing of note, because there's a couple of big Mega decks out there right now, Mewtwo and Mega Gardevoir. These are decks that obviously can't get through Giratina without the use of their own Garbodor that is oftentimes in Mewtwo, and also Gardevoir most likely has to find their Hex Maniacs to do any damage to this guy, so there'll be a select number of turns where you're not, getting hit at all. So that's a great start for us. And then we have its attack Chaos Wheel for a Grass, Psychic, and 2 Colorless Energy. Bear in mind we're only playing Double Dragons and DC in here, so that's how we're going to try and fulfill the cost. We deal 100 damage, and your opponent can't play any tools, specials, or stadium cards from their hand during their next turn. Very, very nice number to hit. 100 is 2-hit KOing everything. When we put a Fighting Fury Belt on this guy, we're also 1-hit KOing Shaymins, and then we're starting to 2-hit even Mega Pokemon with stuff like 220 HP, so very good stuff. The weakness to Fairy is a problem. I've already mentioned that Mega Gardevoir can't hit this unless, of course, they hit the Hex, but as soon as they hit the Hex, they're basically running straight through you. Also, Rainbow Road could be an issue if they start getting going with attackers, but the whole premise of this deck is we're going to stop people getting their attacks off. So we're going to use Crushing Hammers to deny their energy, we're going to use Lysandres to try and stall things, and we're going to try and use Flare Grunts as well whenever we're able to, so that we can keep ploughing through with Chaos Wheel. Mega Gardevoir is almost an auto loss because we can't Lysandre stall things because they'll just Despair Ray them off the board, and whenever we try and deny their energy, they have Mega Turbo and they play likely 2 to 3 Super Odds. So you pretty much take the sack to Mega Gardy as long as they have Hex, which, they probably do. Every other deck seems like it's manageable, even Rainbow Road to a certain extent, because we're going to deny DCE whenever we're able. Not all Rainbow Road players play Ranger, some do just for Valplume Box, and I guess Giratina as well. But we also have Lysandre stall targets. They play things like Hoopa, Volcanion, stuff like that. We have plenty of options to try and slow the game right down, so I would only really consider Mega Gardy an auto loss. Everything else, I feel you're at least in the game. So that's our main attacker. We do have one backup, which is Lugia EX. We have 170 HP. We're a colorless type, and we have Aeroball, which does, for a double colorless energy, 20 times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. This is cool for when people are starting to, overthrow you with energy. It seems counterproductive to play a deck with hammers, but sometimes you just get overrun. Things like Volcanion, where they have so much energy recycle, they're just going to get a lot back. So just popping a DC on and trying to get a 2-hit on a Volcanion with this guy is going to be pretty handy to you at times. Also, you have the Deep Hurricane attack, which for 4 colorless energy, 2 DCEs, you're doing 80 base, and if there's a stadium in play, you do 70 more damage and discard that stadium. Very handy to you. Discarding your parallel is nice because then you have free reign in terms of your own bench size. If you've limited yourself at some point in the game, that can be helpful. And also just trying to win the stadium war against your opponent isn't handy. The 150 base mark is decent. Again, it can be something that one-hit KOs something like Xerneas, which would be a problem for the Giratina players as well. So it's something to bear in mind, definitely. It's rare that you'll get the Deep Hurricane going, but it's an attack to keep an eye out for. I really like this guy because there are times, because Giratina himself has an expensive attack cost, there are times late on in the game where we just don't have enough time to set up a third Giratina, so you just have the DCE on the Lugia starting to smash and hoping that that's enough, really. The supporting cast is going to be one Hoopa EX for a bit of consistency. That Scoundrel Ring ability is going to be great for searching out our early Giratinas, as well as getting us things like Shaymin EX, which we do play 2 of in here, to draw us some more cards. We are playing DCE, so Sky Return is always an option for us. We can do it if we're being stalled by things like a Regice, so we can just Sky Return, bounce around them. That is the idea. We don't have any Ranger in this deck, so potentially things like Regice and Jolteon would be a problem, but we are playing 2 Flare Grunt, we're playing 3 Lysandre, we're playing lots of Hammers. The idea is we're just going to try and deny them energy and then get through them that way. That's our approach for trying to navigate that matchup. The final Pokemon we're playing is just a 2-2 Garbodor line, so the Trubbish, no real need to mention its attack because we don't have the Psychics in here, but we do have Garb. It's the stage 1 with the ability Garbatoxin. If this Pokemon has a tool attached, each Pokemon in play, hand, and in their discard pile has no abilities except for Garbatoxin. So this is very, very cool. It's going to really help out in a bunch of situations. Obviously, you can't set this guy up against the Mega decks because it is so painful for you, because then, you know, you shut down your Giratina, and that's an ability you actually really want. But in other matchups, think about Greninja, it would otherwise be a horrific matchup because we can't really deal with breaks too easily. We need Garbatoxin to stay up, so they're doing as little damage as possible. Additionally, there's things like Mega Break, which could be an issue. It just has too much HP. We couldn't one-hit through something like Mega Break. Additionally, you want the stall approach to work against the dark decks, so denying things like Zoroark is a big deal. Obviously, denying Volcanion, its steam up, is a huge deal, so we need to deny all of these things. Against Rayquaza, it is actually sometimes okay to put Garbodor in, because you can have Parallel City locked in anyway, so they're doing such a low amount of damage. They're reliant on DC in the first place, so you can put Garbodor and Parallel into play, and then it's really hard for them to recover any terms of board state because they're so reliant on Hoopa, Shaymin, DCE, stuff like that. So Garbodor's actually fine against Rayquaza, but that's really the only Mega that I would expect to put it in play for. But there are plenty of matchups that you really are saved thanks to Garb, so it's a pretty big deal in here. Onto the items now. We are playing the one of Special Charge. The deck just has 2 4 counts of Special Energy. So 8 is a lowish count, and one potential issue you can see on the weaknesses, energy removal. Although we're an energy denial deck, it really hurts us to get our energy taken off. So if decks are playing 2 Enhanced Hammer, it can really, really hurt us and set us back a turn or 2. So having Special Charge at least means that we have enough energy to get ourselves through the game, because otherwise that would really be an issue for us. We do have 2 Enhanced Hammer. There are lots of other decks playing Special Energy out there right now, denying it from Mewtwo so that they can't just burn straight through you. As a Giratina who has to commit so much energy to himself, it can be very scary. So Enhanced Hammer is really good there against things like Fright Knights and other dark Pokemon. It's really good to get the Enhanced Hammer in as well. Even Rainbow Road, they commit DCE before you're getting the Chaos Wheel off. It's important to get rid of these. It's weird that you play Chaos Wheel and E-Hammer, but there's just those turns before you get the before you get the Chaos Wheel going. You need to have Enhanced Hammer up and running to really slow them down. And then 4 Crushing Hammer, again, just complementing the style of the deck. Flipping a coin if heads, discard an energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Really good stuff. Putting people back a turn so that we can catch up. We're not the most inherently fast deck or the most inherently damaging, so we have to slow people down with hammers. Next up, we just have the consistency cards of 4 Male, for Ultra Ball, which is normally going to dig for something like Hoopa in the early turns, as well as get ourselves Garb later on, and the 4 VS Seeker to spam our supporters. You can see we have a couple of one-offs, but we have really high... Well, it's weird that we have 3 counts of some of these supporters, so I'll have to get into that into a second. But first of all, let's look at some of the one-offs. One is going to be Olympia. It allows us to switch our active of one of our bench Pokemon if we do heal 30. Because we are going to be using float stones, sometimes we can get hit with things like paralysis or sleep or confusion. These sorts of things would be otherwise really annoying, so having Olympia means we get around that quite nicely. Also, it means we have that bit of healing. Sometimes 30 is a relevant number to heal if we're getting 2 hit KO'd. We have 2 10 HP effectively if we have the Fury Belt on Giratina. So healing 30 can sometimes flip a 2 hit KO into a 3 hit, so that's sometimes something to be aware of. I know Robin's original list played Pokemon Center Lady. I've opted for Olympia instead because this means that it's just an extra total switching card, which makes me feel a bit more comfortable with this list. Another one of that I absolutely love, this is a card that I played in straight Seismitoad, and I'm again trying to employ that strategy here. Misty's Determination. I think it's a really valuable card in a deck like this, where you have to dig for specific cards. You have to dig for your Double Dragons every turn, your DCEs, and sometimes you just need to hit things like hammers. Obviously we have Flare Grunt to try and be a supporter version of a hammer, but at the same time Misty's can just help you dig for your deck for these specific cards, whereas something like Sycamore could be really painful because we're getting rid of other resources. If we have to discard things like Special Charge or hammers in the early turns when the opponent hasn't got any energy on the board, it really sucks for us. But we want to keep digging, we want to keep hitting energy. So Misty is that great middle ground where turn 1, it's still great for us. It can still find us Ultra Ball, can still find us energies, which is great. So it acts as a Sycamore in terms of you're still getting your stuff going, which is what you need in the early turns. Then the mid to late game, when our deck is thin, this deck takes a while to take all 6 prizes, especially because we go for a lock and stall aspect. It's really important to not be continually using Sycamore and N. You want to have Misty sometimes to try and guarantee some of these one-offs. So, not one-off, just more important cards. So Misty's I really like in here for sure. We do similarly play a Skyla. Skyla's going to help get a few clutch cards as well. It acts quite similarly to the Misty's overall, but they're just sort of different cards in a way. But again, it's got the turn 1 potential for getting things like Ultra Ball for that good start, and it's going to help us get into other important cards. So yeah, I really like the Misty's in here. Also, on to 2 Team Flare Grunt, just guaranteeing a denial of an energy, putting your opponent back a turn, just like the Crushing Hammers would do this time. We're happy to just sit and wait for a turn, just put the Flare Grunt on, always to the active Pokemon of course, but it's going to really help people, help us. If we've stalled something, they're having to attach energy to retreat it, we can get rid of that. Or if they're just, you know, trying to set up an attacker, we don't want them to be able to do so. So we will just Flare Grunt them away if able. So we are playing 3 Lysandre. This is something when, first of all, when I saw the list, I thought it was a really high count, but actually playing this deck, I think 3 is definitely correct. The amount of times you need to stall to win games is crazy. So having access to Lysandre as early as possible and as often as possible is really huge. It's really beneficial against the Vileplume decks as well. We're not playing Hex, so if we can't get Floatstone on Trubbish, or if they've gone first, for example, the item lock's going to stay, and we don't play Ranger, so we can't get around their attackers that way. So oftentimes it's going to be a Lysandre stall approach, which is going to win us these games. So having 3 is really good for us, to buy us turns, to get us Chaos Wheel going, things like this. To overall win the game. So 3 Lysandre count I like in so many situations for the stall approach, but also, like I was saying earlier, Giratina is so nice at dealing with things like Shaymin and taking 2 hits on chunky Pokemon. Whenever people bench Hoopas, it's so great to Lysandre them and see if they have the answer or not. It's really cool, so I really like the 3 count. It's great for racing, and it's great for just being disruptive, which is what this deck is all about, really. We are then playing 3N. Like I was saying with the Misties, you don't really always want to discard cards. Definitely in the early turns, you don't want to get rid of your hammers unless you've got the value from them. And things like Special Charge are important to keep around as well. So N is going to be helpful for us. Again, we're not the most proactive, we're not the most aggressive, so putting your opponent down to a lower hand size and trying to make it awkward for them to get their resources is going to be important. So I like the 3 count, higher than in most decks. And slightly lower than in most decks is 3 Sycamore. I actually cut 1 Sycamore for Misties because I like the flip-flop. Sycamore's still good in the early turns, of course. Still good aggressive draw power that you do need throughout a game. But I think 4 is just too many. I'm happy enough with a 3 count overall. Onto the stadiums. We are just playing the 2 Parallel City. It's a very influential stadium in the format right now. So many decks are playing this. It's going to be really helpful to get rid of our Hoopers and Shaymins. They're easy prizes that we don't want to allow our opponents. Additionally, there are matchups where you have to limit your opponent's bench, because otherwise it can be a real threat. Things like Volcanion. It's actually helpful for us either way we put the stadium against Volcanion. Things like, what's it called, Rayquaza, it's really important as well. Rainbow Road to an extent, but normally they can still one-hit KO you. And it's actually way better sometimes to have the stall targets. So you do have to be careful about when you're limiting your opponent's bench, because it's important that you can still access their Shaymins and still access their heavy retreat Pokemon, but oftentimes it's really for your side that you want to reduce this. It's pretty cool. The 3 Fury Belt makes us a lot more chunky, and it just makes Giratina hit their better numbers. It's a very important card. And the 3 Float Stone is very important as well, of course, for the Garbodor, and also going to help us move between our dudes a little bit nicer. Yeah, I think it's a cool option. Finally, just the 4 Double Dragon, which is of course what we need for the Giratinas, and the 4 DCE, which works on everything. So yeah, pretty good stuff. So that is the list. A couple of cards different from Robin's list. One difference was that he actually played one Magina EX. Magina EX is the Mystic Heart ability, preventing all effects of opponent's attacks except damage done to each of your Pokemon that has any metal energy attached to it. So this can really help you out against things like Froakies and Zaruas in these early turns where they're going to try and bubble you, or Moonless Madness. That could be really irritating for you. So it's cool to just have a simple answer in your deck to try and stop that being a pain. You're only worried about damage from attacks. Really, the reason I'm not playing this is because in those sorts of matchups, you want to have Garbodor up anyway. So there'll be times when they can still do that to you. And bear in mind, Robin wasn't playing Olympia. His only switching cards were the Float Stones. So I think his list was a bit more vulnerable than ours would be. So I'm fairly content to cut the Magina for other things, like the second Flare Grunt I think I made the space for. Another option is actually going to be Fairy Drop and Fairy Garden. Fairy Garden's not a bad stadium in here because we actually do play the Double Dragons. And Fairy Drop is actually a fairly cool choice in here. I don't think I'd ever play more than one just because you don't really want to draw into this much and it's not great for a consistency card. But there are times when healing that 50 is really big. Like I was saying with the Olympia, you can get the small amount of heal going and it turns a 2-shot into a 3-shot. And that's really important, especially in this deck where your Giratina is quite vulnerable because we have to commit so much resources into this guy. It's like 2 turns to get a Giratina going. Sometimes that Fairy Drop is worthwhile because it saves us, 2 more turns of headache to get a second Giratina going. So that heal of 50, because again we have Double Dragons, we pretend to have a Fairy Energy on us basically. So Fairy Drop could be handy for us for a bit of extra healing, and it keeps us in the game. The main reason I'm not playing it right now is because I feel I'd rather just have more hammers, because overall in the long run that's going to be way better for us. Just denying the problem in the first place rather than trying to heal off. I think overall that's just a better approach for this deck specifically, but it could be a pretty cool option for us. Ace Train is another one. We're playing the 3N count right now, and I feel like playing the Ace Trainer could also be in a similar vein. It adds to the disruptive element of this deck, and it is pretty important at times. Similarly, Delinquent could be a card, again just fitting with the theme of the deck. We're going to try and force our opponent into awkward spots. Delinquent can definitely do that. The biggest issue being that your opponent can't often put stadiums in because we're using Chaos Wheel, so we would have to put our own stadium in, then Delinquent it. Feels a bit clunky sometimes, so I think it's one that you could play for sure, especially because there are other decks that might play Parallel. They do it first before you get Chaos Wheel going in the first place. Then you can't put your ones in, so you could Delinquent it just so that you can put your own Parallel into play, so that then you can get rid of your own Hoopers and Shaymins. So those cards are definitely worth considering in my opinion. But yeah, that is it for the list. I'll just make sure this is saved up, and we will jump into the ladder now and try and find some games. Hopefully we can avoid Mega Gardevoir, but everything else feels fairly okay in my opinion. So, we'll test that theory out right now. And flip the coin. Looks like we get to go first. And we lead with Lugia. One thing we're not playing in this deck is Ninja Boy, now that I mention it. But that's fine. Looks like we are up against Greninja. And like I was saying, the Garbodor is definitely tailored for the Greninja. And it's definitely why we play it. So hopefully we can do okay. Lugia is actually fine against the Greninja players. Because it can put enough early pressure on. It is very tempting. Because we can't attack turn 1 anyway, I'm a little bit put off. Because it's Greninja, the hammers are useless, right? So we're going to get rid of these 2 cards and just go for the Hoopa straight away, I feel. We do have both of our pieces of Garb. What's really cool about playing against Greninja is that you don't need the Garbodor too quickly. We have a few turns to chill before we have to stress out about getting Garbodor, so we can just take our time here. I think I'm going to be attaching the Double Dragon to the bench. We can bench this guy as well. I'm going to Fury Belt up this guy because overall he's going to be the one that I attack with more. The damage isn't really relevant if I was to put a Fury Belt on this turn. It would be relevant if he gets a Frogadier going, but obviously it's his first turn, so we don't have to worry about that just yet. And we can set up for 3 cards. We do get a few fairly unhelpful trainers. Can't put down the Shaymin because it limits the space that has to be Trubbish. So I think I'm happy enough to pass this turn. Because we have the DC to threaten the Froakie next turn if they attach the energy. But really, that's it for now. We are going to see the energy. It looks like it's bubble time. The opponent does have a level ball first of all, though. For that Froakie. Slaps that on the bench. We see a Trainer's Mail. That fails. And it's bubble. And fortunately for us, it does get Tails. So we can take a knockout this turn. I am, now that we pick up the Fury Belt, going to put it on board. Because it means next turn he attaches to Froakie. It evolves up. It only has 70 HP. So this Fury Belt is definitely relevant. Because the opponent doesn't have Frogadier though, I think we're not going to play the N. We're just going to Aero Ball here. For the KO. And we pick up Double Colorless, which is really good for us. The opponent is straight away under pressure, but that's only natural for a Greninja player. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They do have the Dive Ball. There is Frogadier. They do evolve up. See Bursting Balloon. And we see Sycamore. Having to get rid of a break. Normally they play multiple Super Rods anyway. Sometimes even Karen in this day and age. The opponent searches out another Froakie. They do attach to their active. There is Froakie. And we see Water Duplicates to pluck out the rest of the Frogadiers. Just 2 of them, so it looks like they've either prized one or drawn into one. Either possibilities work. I'm going to continue to this Lugia because it's actually a really good attacker at the moment. I could just play these Crushing Hammers to get rid of them. It's taking a knockout anyway with Deep Hurricane. Just because I don't want to draw into these. I actually need to start getting a move on and get the Trubbish going. We've been happy enough not playing N based on what our opponent had, but now I feel it's worth it to try and find this Trubbish, which we do find, which is good for us. Not much else going on in our hand. Lots of the Disruption supporters, which are good in other matchups. So it looks like we are going to have to tank the Bursting Balloon hit here, but I think it's definitely worth it for a bit of pressure. And we pick up Trainer's Mail, which I'll happily take if we can get something like Sycamore or VS Seeker. That would be greatly appreciated. The opponent does go into Greninja now. Attaches an energy for the turn. And do they have Lysandre or not is the question. If they have Lysandre, they're still in fairly okay shape. As long as they can evolve the bench also. I think if they evolve the bench and have Lysandre, it's really good for them. If not, I think we're in good shape. Just the Moonlight Slash. That's very good for us. Putting us down to 70 HP remaining. We pick up Special Charge, which isn't ideal. We do have the Trainer's Mail. Sycamore, I think, is the card that I take here. Because we want to develop Garb. Well, I mean, if we take the KO anyway this turn, is Garb more relevant than the heal? I have nothing else to switch back into, though. The heal is kind of a big deal. Okay, I think we're just taking Sycamore. All of these supporters are useless. The Special Charge being lost is a bit frustrating, but we'll live with that. We do hit Double Dragon. Let's get rid of more hammers, because they are all dead. And let's find Garbodor. At the very least, it's worth finding Garb, because then we can't be one-hit KO'd with a Lysandre. And we're going to use at least one Trainer's Mail to get a Floatstone here. And we actually do pick one up straight away, so I'm happy enough to keep the other two cards in hand. Alternative is that we could find Parallel City, and then they don't one-hit KO us with with Moonlight Slash, so I think it's worth digging for that as well. Looks like we failed that, but Olympia might be worth taking here. I think it's pretty safe to take Olympia. Also, it's really not horrible to take Sycamore here. We only lose Misty and whatever we top deck. Okay, I think Olympia might be a little bit too slow. So we'll just take Sycamore for next turn. And we'll Deep Hurricane, keeping the pressure up here. Oh man, we don't have a stadium in play. That's really bad for me. I really didn't notice that. That's shocking. Okay, now there's a stadium in play, but it's on the opponent's side. Okay. Let's get back on track here. We're still in good shape. Second Greninja, bursting a balloon to the active one. Well, the one that will be becoming active in a moment. We do see a break, but we have got Garb up, so it's just for HP purposes right now. See an Evo Soda for a Frogadier that they recycled with a Super Rod. Don't know why I was just thinking this was 150. And the Moonlight Slash is going to finish off Lugia. So let's think about our best option here. If I can replace the stadium, then I think just getting a DC for Sky Return might be our best move here. We'll play Sycamore first of all. There's DC and Stadium. Okay, that's the line I'm going for here. The only reason now not to Sky Return is so that we could Chaos Wheel and keep this in. I think that might be better actually. 60 plus 60. Yeah, because of the reduction of damage, it makes more sense to keep the lock of Parallel City in. So we'll just go for the Chaos Wheel here. Take the balloon damage, because I think it's worth denying Rough Seas. Interesting to see a list that still plays the Rough Seas over Faded Town. It's more annoying for this deck, that's for certain, but... The opponent now retreats, and goes for Moonlight Slash. pick up Double Dragon, which is cool. I don't see a huge need to Lysandre anything. All of them are equally as threatening as each other. So we'll just Chaos Wheel. No real need to play into something like Ace Trainer, which they could be holding. There's an attachment now to the break. And a retreat. And Moonlight Slash once again, just for that 60. Thanks to the reduction of parallel. So we do hit VS Seeker. And we don't have Olympia in here. See, this is where Pokemon Center Lady looks pretty clutch, doesn't it? Could just VS Seek N. Hope they don't get an energy. Three gone. They still probably have a lot. We get the knockout. We know they have energy though, so I think it's worth just going for the N over anything else. We do have to be careful about our own deck size throughout the rest of the game. There's Olympia for next turn, so if we can survive, if they don't have an energy in hand here, we could get away with it for now. Either way, even if they take these two prizes, I still feel we're fairly far ahead as long as we can maintain the Chaos Wheel lock. Because their output is pretty shoddy. We've gone through 2 Fury Belts. There's a Trainer's Mail which fails. And there's an Ace Trainer that does get played. There's another Trainer's Mail for a Super Rod. Super Rod is going to be played. We're going to see the retreat into Froakie, so it looks like they did actually whiff energy, which is gross for them. So, Olympia here doesn't do much, but like if I Olympia into Olympia again, it makes a lot of sense. Because we have so many VS Seekers, I think it's really worth doing this. Because of course they can't snipe with Garbodor around. So yeah, they just concede after the Olympia play. Pretty good stuff. That was fortunate that they did miss the energy, but if they did get the energy, it's another Greninja we're taking out. They respond with 60, then we take another Greninja out and they're left with just that Froakie. Obviously they had turns to develop it again, but they were really running low on terms of cards, so and real threats on the board. So I think we were already going to be winning that game, even with their energy, like even if they found that energy. So let's get into another game. Looks like it's some sort of fairy deck, which is concerning. We don't like seeing fairy stuff. If it is Rainbow Road, there is a glimmer of hope. But if it's Mega Guardi, I do feel very unfavoured. One option for this deck is actually Bunnelby, now that I think about it. Because sometimes we can just stall things. Bunnelby could be cool. Leading with Hoopa. Sad times. The opponent's going to be able to take a few mulligans here. We are going first and we have N in hand though, so it's not the biggest issue. Looks like we're up against some sort of Darkrai. Darkrai with Togetic acceleration. And if it's Togetic acceleration, they're probably not playing special energy. So with that train of thought, we're gonna Ultra Ball away the Enhanced Hammer. We have prized one Trubbish. We've also prized a Giratina. Let's see what else is prized. One Crushing. One Ultra Ball, one Male. And one DC. Okay. We can live with this. 3, 6, 7. I think just for denying the opponent a card. Like, we need more than just the Misty here. The Sycamore seems wasteful in terms of resources. At the same time, though, it's fairly important to get Trubbish going as quickly as possible. And these are quite cool to have in the discard pile. I've talked myself out of it. Let's Sycamore. We do hit the Ultra Ball, which I'm definitely going to be using. I think next turn is actually quite good for a Sycamore as well. Not too bad of a first turn. A couple of painful Ultra Balls, but nothing we can't handle. We see an attachment of Dark Energy. If we can get Garb up before the Togetic gets rocking, our Hammer spam is going to be very good. We're going to see an Ultra Ball. Gets rid of that as Delinquent. Uh-oh, that's something we have to be on the lookout for. In a few games where I've been delinquented to 0, it makes me quite sad. The opponent finds a Darkrai and then sets up back up to 6. See a Hex Maniac. And just a pass. So we'll attach to Giratina once again. We'll play a Crushing Hammer. We do get the heads. We can put Lugia in quite happily, and we'll just Sycamore this. Looking for at least one Float Stone. That's a real shame. Missing out on 100 damage just because we missed a float there. Obviously we can't Shaymin because of the Hex. There's no real reason to just Ultra Ball now. We'll just hold. We see an attachment to Darkrai, an evolution into Togetic. The Toga... No, sorry, that's Toga... Yeah, Toga Kiss has the trait that allows it to evolve the same turn, so that's worrying. They do play Devo Spray as well. There's a Fury Belt onto Darkrai. Trainer's Mail for Ultra Ball. So they can start looking for that Toga Kiss now. Instead they just go for a Shaymin EX. Maybe they already have Toga Kiss. No. Just gonna see the setup. Followed by another Trainer's Mail. We'll see how crazy they can flood their board of energy. They do find themselves Devo Spray. And there is Ultra Ball. Getting rid of a Darkrai and an energy. Looks like it was definitely for a Togekiss, right? Yeah, let's have a look at this card. I believe it's the top 8. Yeah. It does have the evolution trait, so it can evolve immediately after going Togetic. And when you play it, you get to look at the top 8 and choose as many basic energy and put them onto your board. And then you see Devo Spray and it can use it straight away again. Very cool acceleration for this card. So this Darkrai is getting into very dangerous realms of damage. Gets 2 energy on the board for free. Who needs elixirs? Darkrai pumps out the 130. So I could well DC retreat Flare Grunt. They only have a 2-card hand. I think that's okay. It means I'm definitely not getting Garb though. Unless I Ultra Ball Garb then Shaymin. I guess I could do that. Oh, DCing Hoopa's horrific though. Maybe I do this line first and see if I can get a float. We can evolve Garb because we don't have the tool. I think I am committing to the Flare Grunt play. We'll set up for 4. So we do hit the float, which is cool. We're going to put it on Garbodor though. I think for the long-term success of this matchup, we need to do this. Gonna hold on to this male just in case they have the delinquent they might want to do. If I play this and get no target, it's scary for me. Delinquent is already scary enough with this hand. Naturally, they have the attachment, CVS Seeker for Sycamore. This is like a nightmare matchup as well, just because the pure amount of basic energy they're likely playing. And they're playing things like Energy Recycler. That's a nightmare for an Energy Denial deck. We've only gone through 1 crushing though. And we're going to see Dark Pulse. We're going to start with Trainer's Mail here. Pick up VS Seeker. That is tempting. So, could easily just take out a Shaymin here. Obviously I could just take out the active, limit his damage quite a bit. Then what's my supporter? Probably Misty, looking for Giratina. Yeah, I think that's best. Let's try and find Giratina here. Ooh, no luck. Fairy Belt's pretty good though. It does make Lugia like an actually viable backup. So we'll just take the 2 prizes now. Mainly because it just wipes energy off the board this way. There's DC Trainer's Mail. Picking up that second DC could be helpful. Obviously, we'll have to find a stadium though. Not going to make that same mistake as last time. Pretty sure we didn't prize stadium, did we? No. Either way, we 2-hit a Darkrai because of the Fury Belt. CVS Seeker for N. And N is going to get played. Looks like we do find Parallel, which is cool. We also find Crushing Hammer. Gonna see a Level Ball. Wonder how thick their Togekiss line is. It's definitely an interesting one. They play a Mew, which isn't that relevant with Garbodor chilling. We do see an attachment. And just a Dark Pulse for the knockout. So we have Crushing Hammer. Get a Tails on that one. Gonna DCU Lugia. Flare Grunt isn't a bad option here. Alternatives is to Lysandre and take 2 prizes this turn. Threaten the game next turn. Flare Grunt. What's Flare Grunt like here? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 energy gone. Their hand size is large though. If I VS Seeker Lysandre, take 2 prizes, I'm down to a 4-card hand as well, which is fairly awkward for Delinquent. Still have 2 Crushing Hammers in the deck, so there's nothing wrong really with just going for a Sycamore play. Okay, that's what we're going to do, I think. Going to put the stadium in. Limiting ourselves is super awkward, but we don't need to attach this turn anyway. And we'll discard the stadium with Lugia at the end of the turn. So that's going to be our approach. I think it's worth Sycamore over N here. We have more likelihood of getting into Crushing Hammers. Miss all of them naturally. I might wait to get some more Double Colorless back in the deck before I use Special Charge. And before Deep Hurricane, we're going to attach that. And we'll Deep Hurricane now. For 160, the opponent is able to once again use tools, stadiums, and special energy. They haven't been able to for a while. The one thing we hope they don't have is Fury Belt, because we're setting up Sky Return KO, which could be pretty cool. Fury Belting the Shaymin's good for a number of reasons here. It means he's out of reach for an easy 2 prizes. Like, he can still KO the Hoopa, but then the Shaymin's still out of reach if he's going for the race approach. So I think we're pretty much in control right now. We do see that Lysandre. It's going to take that Hoopa. Can't really see any backup attackers from the opponent unless they have Ninja Boy in hiding. There's the Mew, but obviously it can't attack as long as Garbodor's around. Maybe they do have Ninja Boy plays on their mind. There's going to be the Dark Pulse. We'll just promote Garb. I think it's pretty safe to just Sky Return. Though nothing's threatening me for a knockout. The issue being is that we pick up more cards that are bad against N. Alternative is to VS Seeker Misty. Misty to try and find a Pokemon. Yeah, I think that's fine. Gonna get rid of the Shaymin because it's useless with Garb around. Crushing Hammer's not bad. That gets a Tails. Gonna attach the Shaymin just to Lysandre proof. And it's somewhat N-proofing as well, I guess. We'll just Error Ball. Can't see any immediate threats right now. The opponent does go into the Mew, but it's obviously got free retreat, so we'll see what they're scheming now. There is Super Rod, so maybe part of the scheme is to get back Darkrai's. Just 1 and 2 energies. Sounds good to me. And what else do they have? We shall have to wait and see. There's an attachment to Shaymin EX. And a Fury Belt as well. And a Professor Sycamore. There is the Darkrai. It's going to be a Skyla turn. Nope, just a concede. Okay. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's have one more game with this deck. I know they are quite long games, but I think it's an interesting deck to see in action. And we've played against Greninja and a strange build of Darkrai, so it'd be cool to get another meta deck. I saw Psychic and Colorless, so this could be Mewtwo. We do lose the coin flip. And we do have the Giratina start. Not the best of hands. We do at least have N to recycle this though. And it is indeed Mega Mewtwo, most likely. So, we got to be careful in this matchup. Got to be very careful. First of all, we've got to see if they're playing Garbodor or if they're playing, whatchamacallit, Hexes. We see the Ultra Ball straight off the bat, getting rid of Sycamore and N. Could be for Hoopa, or it could even be for Trubbish. We'll have to find out. Obviously in this matchup we don't get the Trubbish out. So yes, they are playing Garbodor. And this is interesting. Sometimes you actually prefer it that they play Garb, because you can just KO the Garb, and then they have no more ability lock. Some Mewtwo builds play one Hex and Garbodor. The biggest issue, however, is if they get Trubbish down and then another Trubbish down. That's the biggest pain. If they can get multiple Trubbish, then it is awkward for us. But as long as we Chaos Wheel, it means that they can't get another Floatstone on. So, fingers crossed for us. It's a very intricate matchup. And we get Fury Belt off the top, which I'll gladly put on. We'll go for the Crushing Hammer. We do get Tails. I think I'm going to limit the opponent's bench here, because then it's more awkward for them to try and get the second Trubbish down and such. Also, it gives us an extra card for Shaymin right now to dig for some energies. We do find Double Dragon, which I'll gladly put on. Now, we know the opponent doesn't have Spirit Link, otherwise they almost definitely attach it. We know they have a supporter though, because they discarded Sycamore and N for the Shaymin. So I am going to N here. We can play Trainer's Mail. We do hit Ultra Ball, which is going to be pretty handy here, because we can get rid of 2 dead cards. And that means we can grab... Do I go Hoopa or just these guys? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think it's fine to go Hoopa here. May as well get the value in now. Get the lads out. Because really what I want to do is dig for a potential Lysandre for next turn, so get the Shaymin value while we can. Potential Lysandre? Sure. There's potential in there somewhere. We'll hold this hand, I believe. Float can go on Hoopa. I think that's what I want to play. Yeah. Let's see if the opponent can get the Mega going. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. It's a lot for them to KO us. There's Spirit Link. There's VS Seeker just for the N. And the N is going to get played here. So they need Garb. They need the Mega. They need Energy as well. That's to do any damage. So it's promising. We do see a Shrine. That does get put into play. There's DCE. And just Shatter Shot for 30. So we haven't seen any Lysandres yet, which is a real pain. Because otherwise we could deal with the Trubbish and be absolutely happy with our lives. But that means we just Skyla for it here. Or we could go Enhanced Hammer, right? We're on 30. 2, 10, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16. E-Hammer's not bad here. We'll take it. Because now that we're doing the Chaos Wheel, we're a little bit safer. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. No, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, I guess. Yeah. Scary times, but we're putting the pressure on at the very least. Denying the DCE as an out. There's another Mewtwo. There's the Mega. And there's a Sycamore. Gets rid of that DCE, so that's pretty cool. There is Garb, so he is now damaging us. There's the attachment. And Psychic Infinity is going to absolutely bosh us for the knockout. This is a tough decision now. I think it's just DCN. Nothing wrong with putting Trubbish down. He's probably my stall option this turn. Hitting some crushings isn't bad either. Obviously they do play Mega Turbo, but still forcing it to be in their hand. We'll see here. We've lost the battle but not the war. We have the Lysandre DC in hand, so... we get end out of it. Scary, scary times. There's Lysandre but no energy. Gross. Another Mega. Ultra Ball. Gets rid of a Float Stone, which is cool. Finds a Shaymin, but he's got Garb in. And just chooses not to attack us. It's not a bad decision at all. I think I'm just Flare Grunting here. We know his hand is just Shaymin. Let's see what we go off the mail, actually. Special Charge is worth taking for sure, because that's what we want to draw into. Our hand is all supporters. This is crazy. We want exactly double dragons. Flagrant's, I mean, it's fine. The alternative is that we take... No, it's so many turns because we're not able to move this Trubbish. Yeah, I think I'm just grunting. We'll have some slow turns here. See how he top decks. Protect ourselves a little bit. Just the Shatter Shot with Shrine, putting us to 10 HP. Could Lysandre the other Mewtwo now. Could Misty for potential hammer. We could Misty for energy. I think I'm Misty for energy here. Yeah, we definitely Misty for energy. There is an energy. But we hold it for next turn. We have Olympia if he wants to not attack. If he does attack, we can Lysandre Garb. We seem to be okay here. So no attack means we Olympia. And we're going to take the knockout here. Picking up Floatstone and VS, that's not bad. Really, it's just a case of can we get the Lysandre off next turn? If we do, we seem to be in great shape. The opponent has Ultra Ball, that's not ideal for them because, of course... Oh wow, they got rid of a third Floatstone, I believe. Well, it's their second one, but the third one's here, right? So that's looking good for us. They do have Sycamore though, so they are back in the game in some respects. We see a Trainer's Mail for Lysandre. And just the pass. So this always happens. Nothing else we want to do on our turn. Maybe play this Floatstone down, but even then I don't think I particularly need to. We know they have Lysandre, so if I put it anywhere they'll just try and Lysandre another target. So picking up DC is cool. We can start charging up Lugia to get rid of their stadiums. Because Shrine can be annoying for us. They can just keep damage change healing. We do see Trubbish. And can he get 2 down in 1 turn is the real question. See, he has got rid of 3 float. And 3 is the standard count, right? But either way, because we're at odd prizes, it's still worth Lysandering this guy next turn. The opponent plays Lysandre. And just passes. So we can Floatstone. We also pick up the Fury Belt, which protects us that little bit more. I'm going to start committing DCE. Although this is like pretty much never becoming a Garb, I'm still just gonna deal with it now on the off chance he plays 4 or plays like puzzles or something random. In terms of racing, it's fine. We still have the Lysandre for game on this guy. Yep. So we're able to overcome the Mewtwo just with our disruptive things. And that's pretty much the aim of the deck. Just sort of grind out the opponent in whichever way possible, really. So I think we gave a good account of Giratina hammers. I do think, now that I've played a few more games with it, that the Center Lady is kind of needed in addition to the Olympia. I think that's a pretty cool option. I may even cut one of the enhanced hammers. Because we Chaos Wheel so much, this is kind of a dead card. So I think going forward, maybe one extra Center Lady, or even Fairy Drop. Because actually this plays so many supporters. Yeah, it's one I need to mull over in my head a bit. But like I said, Fairy Drop is actually a decent option here, and I might play a one-of. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that is the list, guys. I think it's a very interesting deck. Plays a lot differently to everything else in format right now. It's very oppressive in terms of its playstyle. So let me know what you guys think about it. Can it compete in the upcoming regionals? I'd love to see if it can or not. Leave a like to this video if you did, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. For now though, it has been Joe from Omnipoke, and I will see you guys next time.